Hello, it's Mira Reisberg again from the Children's Book Academy, and I'm also editor, art director at Clear Fork Publishing's children's imprint, Spork. So this is Diana Delosh's work, and it's really delightful. It's very loose, and just incredibly charming. I love this character because he's very expressive. Um, so there's not a lot that I would suggest with this, but here's what I would suggest. I would want you to give a little more room at the top and a little more room at the right. And by room, I mean a little more of that white space. And the reason for that is that you don't want the printer, the machines are not, 100 million times accurate. And they need a little bit of wiggle room when they're cropping the paper, which is why you want to have a bleed. So I would like to have a little more space above the elephant's head for that bleed. The other thing that I would suggest is you've got this lovely texture happening on the elephant, and it looks like a kind of canvas texture. And I might continue that canvas texture on the actual white page as well, over the whole thing. Although it's totally fine the way it is. I really like the expression. I love the thicks and thins in the line work, which shows that it's done by hand and it's not super mechanical, although it could easily have been done in Procreate or Photoshop. And I love this little white moon, this little white halo around the flower. I don't know why, but it's just really charming. And the characters are really charming. I really like the relational quality, that they're obviously having a conversation, and the body language that's happening. The way the head is on an angle here, and the way, the legs are, this leg is half bent, and it's just really adorable. So not a lot of suggestions with this one. Now with the second one, it's also lovely, but we lose a lot of the charm. To me, it seems a little more overworked. And then here, this cheek seems just a bit puffy. And I'm just going to select this, Command C, and I'm going to bring it onto the next page. I'm going to make the next page a little bigger. So image, canvas size, and maybe I'll make that 18 over there. And we want a white background. Here we go. Okay. And I'm just going to paste that here. So you can see them side by side and see how this guy is just a lot more refined looking. And the brushwork is just a lot less labored. And I think it can be really helpful to have it side by side. Your grass has gotten darker here than it is here. And I'm wondering if it's because it's becoming nighttime. And if it is, and that's not to say that this is awful by any means. It's just compared to this, it's not as wonderful. So have them side by side and go in and just pick up some of this. So let me find a brush. I'm going to use the erase tool, which is E. And let's find, I'm just going to use a soft fuzzy brush. I do most of my color work in Procreate, so that's where I've got all the great brushes. I'm looking here. And because it's on a background layer, make a new layer down here. Select all with Command A. Remember, I'm on a Mac. I've got white in the foreground here, And then I'm just going to do G to select the bucket tool. And I just filled that layer with white so that when I erase back here to get more of that lightness, and I really wish I did have a good watercolor brush that I could pull up quickly. Oops. I'm going to make it nice and big. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the opacity. So I'm just going to do it, say, 40%. Oops, and I'm doing it on the white layer. So just lightening it up a little, I think, is helping. Helping make it look a little less labored. And then I would just, maybe enunciate see how you've got the top of the head enunciated, maybe enunciate down here. And enunciate means basically to pronounce. And there's also, I know that I think this is a meerkat. The meerkat is closer to us, the viewer, but here it looks very, very small. And the other thing I would do here, and let me have a go with that, is I would curve the meerkat's back a little. I think in one of my earlier videos I spoke about having organic shapes and how much more pleasing they are. So let's go back here and choose the lasso tool. And I'm just going to go in here. I just selected a small amount. I'm going to make it bigger so you can see. And that's going to be a little challenging because of the trunk. But let's see what I can do. Command C, Command V. I'm keeping it, making a new layer. Edit, transform. And by now, if you've been watching the rest of the series, you'll know that I love the warp tool. Okay, so I think that just adds a little more charm. Let's bring it down. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, that I believe that guy a little more with the, not quite so ramrod straight. And then there's just more of a play with the rounded shapes happening within each other. Now, the next thing that I would encourage you to do, I love white space. And some days I have more patience than others, and this isn't one of them. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick and dirty lasso tool to select the background. And this is one of the things that's really advantageous if you work in Procreate or Photoshop, is that you have everything on isolated layers. And that makes it really easy to go in and make any changes that you want. And so once again, I'm going to make another layer. And I'm going to go X to bring the white up to the front. And I'm just going to create white space here. And I'm doing it really quick and funky to show you how much more integrated that looks if we have white space in the background. And then the other thing is, if this is a double spread, pay attention to where the gutter is, where the middle fold of the book is. And I think it's right here. Oops, wants me to use this. Okay, so here's 0, and to here it's 11, so that's 5.5, and that's fine. It's not ideal, but it's absolutely fine, and it's such a wonderful large space. Now, by having this white here instead of having the background, it's going to be much, much easier to have your story go over here. So it shows that you're leaving space for text. So it's like, oh, I'm always telling writers, leave plenty of room for your illustrators. And then I'm telling illustrators, leave plenty of room for the words. Which is why if you can do both, it really is the ideal. Now there's one other thing that I thought of when looking at this, which is it might be really fabulous to have this as a night scene. Now I don't know if that works with the story, but I'm just going to select that by just clicking on the layer and holding down the Command key. And see how we've got the marching ants. And I'm just going to find me a fabulous dark blue. So we've made that selection here. I'm going to turn this layer off. See, it's still selected here. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to do yet another layer right there. I'm going to use G, which is the bucket tool, to fill that area. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the opacity. So let's make it 60, and that's not quite the right color. So let's see if we can find a slightly less vibrant color. So I'm bringing it a little more into the grays. Let's try that. And now let's make it 40, 60, 70, 80, 100. But you know what I'm saying. 70. 80. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. And obviously I'd go in and do this a little cleaner, and the same behind the trees. But that would hint at the depth of field that you're portraying here. And what else would it do? It would hint at the depth of field, and it would also give you a good, background to have high contrast. And now let's see what font. Okay, Myriad Pro is fine. And let's take it to 24. So that's too big for this size. Or not necessarily. Let's make it a little smaller. Because this would not be an 11 by, this would not be a 5.5 inch by 7 inch size book in all likelihood. Okay, so that's really my critique. See how much of this looseness you can bring in here. Play with it. And that's something you'll hear from me a lot. Play with it, play with it. And let's bring that. Oop. I like the night. And I like this. I think it's got a lot of possibilities. Whether you're making it a story or it's just a portfolio piece. But it would be pretty easy to turn into a story if it isn't already. Diana, lovely work. I'm really smitten with this. And I think this could be absolutely wonderful too. So I would just, clean up the background so that you've got just more contrast, either by having it white or by having the night blue. So that's it. Nice quickie one for me today and for you. I hope all of you enjoyed it, and beautiful work. Heads up, our illustration course. So lovely work, and thank you for being brave and allowing me to critique it. Let me just look at, there we go. Yes, I love how just such a small thing can make a big difference. And they look more related now. I hope you agree. I hope there was something helpful here. I'd love to have you in our illustration course starting January 13th if you can swing it, because I know that I could open some doors for you. Nice work. And thank you. Bye for now.